Greetings, and if you're new to this page called NYCHA We Pay Rent Now Fix It, welcome. This page has turned into somewhat of a hub of information, so there'll be various people sharing information about things going on with NYCHA or public housing in general, and giving opinions as well as advice on where you may be able to get help. I just hope that those who are doing so give correct information, and if you're not sure of the information being given is correct, let the person know that you think that may be the case, because people need factual information, particularly with all that's going on here in NYCHA. Having said that, lately I've been posting information about a group called Palente, which has been hosting a couple of webinars which also deal with housing, NYCHA RAD, PACT, and in all of the webinars that I've attended so far, they seem to always have legal counsel present. They give information on the issue being discussed and also allow for Q&A, for questions to be asked at the end of their webinar. So I suggest those of you who have questions concerning RAD, PACT, or even housing in general, attend these webinars. They're free. You can do so from your home. You can do so in the street, on your cell phone, and listen in. And why not, if somebody's there providing legal information that is in fact correct information that you can rely on, why not attend? The most recent webinar that I attended had to do with NYCHA and RAD PAC. But because I had just finished posting and sharing information about the threats of cuts to Section 8 and rental assistance, I thought that I'd go on that webinar and ask the legal counsel present if in fact those cuts were made, would it result in people having to leave their apartments? In other words, be evicted. Or having to leave is a polite way, it seems, instead of coming out and telling people that they will be evicted if unable to meet those new work requirements that are attached to people having Section 8. Please understand that these things are still being proposed. They are not yet law. There are other cuts to Section 8 that have in fact occurred, and people have lost their Section 8, but this is something in addition to the cuts that's already been made. So I'm going to share with you the Q&A part of that webinar when I pose the question. The way they set it up is you write in your questions and somebody will read off your question to the attorney during the presentation, and they will respond. So what you're about to hear is the response of the legal representation from that webinar in regards to the proposed Section 8 cuts in the new work requirements and what would possibly happen if in fact those proposed cuts were passed and made into law.
Next question. Danette, I believe is the name. If Trump's proposed cuts to rental assistance are approved, resulting in work requirements and 2-year limit on rental assistance, how will this affect tenants in NYCHA under RAD PACT who are unable to meet those requirements? Does losing this assistance result in tenants now having to pay the market rate for the rent instead of 30% of their income?
Yeah, so this is a couple of things going on here. Earlier in March of this year, HUD issued a proposed rule that would permit public housing authorities, so for example NYCHA, to impose impose a 2-year time limit on people residing in public housing, with an exclusion for disabled households or senior households. And in addition to that, a public housing authority would be authorized to implement work requirements, similarly requiring able-bodied, non-senior, non-disabled household members to work up to 40 hours a week. This is a proposal. It is not a rule. It hasn't been finalized yet. There are many people who have opposed it. Comments are due tomorrow in case you want to go online and submit the comment to oppose it, I urge you to do that. Again, it wouldn't require them to impose this. It would permit a housing authority to impose work requirements or time limits. NYCHA has publicly said they would not do that. Obviously, they are saying that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they wouldn't at one time be pressurized by a Trump administration to impose those. But yes, it is a federal proposed rule. It has not been finalized. There are comments due tomorrow if you want to do that. It could, and this is the reason why we are vociferously opposing it, it could lead to those kind of time limits and work requirements, could lead to the eviction of 3.5 million people living in federally subsidized housing throughout the country, including 1.9 million children. So yes, it is a big deal. It is something we're very scared about, but NYCHA has assured everyone that they do not intend to do that. There are only a couple of public housing authorities across the nation that are part of a demonstration project called Moving to Work that have actually tried to impose work requirements. So you'd have to watch and see how that goes. But yes, it could end up with people having to leave. But again, it is not the law. It is not the current law. And we do not expect for it to become the situation in New York.
And there you have it. It would result in people having to leave. The issue is being taken very, very seriously by the attorneys and others involved who are fighting against this. But it's good to know that these things are on the radar and being threatened by the Trump administration by way of HUD. So in answer to a question earlier asked on this page as to why things about Trump are being posted when it's supposed to be a page about NYCHA, those are the reasons. Because these cuts are coming by way of Trump to HUD, who is proposing these cuts to HUD. If you're not aware of it, all of NYCHA's funding comes from HUD. Okay, HUD has been systematically cutting NYCHA's funding year after year after year for the last several years. It's the reason why your quality of living has basically turned to trash. It's because of those cuts. And they're not through. They're still attempting to cut it to leave all of NYCHA with no other recourse but its privatization. I'm Dan at Chavis, and I'll see you on Facebook on NYCHA We Pay Rent. Now fix it.